I never thought I'd be the kind of soldier who made aliens flinch just by walking into a room, but I could feel it the moment I arrived. The silence, the stares, the way conversations cut off mid-sentence. Fear hung heavier than the recycled air of the station. Out here, humanity already carried a reputation that stretched far beyond the stars. Ordinary humans, not soldiers, not warriors, just regular men and women, had already managed to make the galaxy nervous. Not because of our weapons, not because of our numbers, but because we were relentless. We didn't surrender when logic said to. We didn't quit when our bodies begged us to. We didn't accept defeat, even when it was staring us in the face. I heard the whispers long before I saw combat. Traders, smugglers, even hardened mercenaries would mutter warnings about Terrans in the same tone they used for plagues and black holes. Don't cross them. They don't stop. That was the myth. The story passed from one alien world to another. And the truth? It was worse. So when the galaxy discovered that humanity didn't just have ordinary soldiers, but entire divisions trained beyond endurance, special forces, it wasn't just unease anymore. It was dread. I remember the first time I saw the look in their eyes when they learned about us. The realization that if regular humans could terrify entire empires, then people like me, born and bred for the shadows of war, would become something else entirely. A nightmare they couldn't contain. The Galactic Council thought they could cage us with words and rules, as if treaties and declarations would somehow change human nature. They underestimated how fear spreads faster than fire, and once it ignites, it's impossible to smother. I stood in that great chamber, a place carved from crystal and steel, where hundreds of species argued beneath banners of peace. The air shimmered with the voices of delegates, each trying to shout over the others, their throats clicking, hissing, growling in panic. One after another, they pointed to us, humans, blaming us for destabilizing their fragile balance. I still remember the accusations. A feathered envoy from the Veilkin shrieked. One human platoon reduced an entire Krashik armada to wreckage. A scaled diplomat hissed, "Your kind fights without logic, without restraint. You turn your own destruction into a weapon." They spoke like we were beasts wearing uniforms, monsters that had somehow stumbled onto the galactic stage. And in a way, that's exactly how they saw us. The moment I walked into the chamber, the arguing stopped. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. My uniform was worn, my hands scarred, my eyes steady. Every alien gaze turned toward me, and I could feel their unease sharpen into something colder. They saw a soldier who should have died a dozen times over but hadn't. They saw proof of the stories they told in hushed voices. The council thought banning us from certain worlds would keep them safe. All they really did was paint a target on Earth and give soldiers like me a reason to fight harder than ever. The Krashik Empire believed they understood war. They had conquered dozens of worlds, enslaved entire populations, and built fleets that blotted out suns. To them, humanity was just another species to crush, loud, reckless, fragile. They thought a swift strike at our colonies would shatter our will and bring us crawling to their throne. What they didn't understand was that we had endured worse long before we ever reached the stars. They had never studied our history, never grasped the simple truth that humans don't break the way other species do. I was there when the counter-strike began. Our drop pods cut through their skies like fire raining from heaven. The Krashik soldiers waited below with their toxin rifles, their chitin armor gleaming, and their psychic screamers pulsing waves meant to shred the minds of their enemies. Against us, those tricks fell flat. We shoved wax and cloth into our ears, grinned at their war cries, and kept advancing. Where their poisons burned others, we adapted, we improvised, we kept moving forward. I crashed into their trenches with boots sinking into alien muck, my rifle spitting death into the swarm of insect-like forms. And when ammunition ran low, I tore weapons from their hands and turned their own blades against them. I saw the disbelief in their compound eyes, the shudder of creatures realizing for the first time that fear was not something humans fled from, it was something we carried with us, sharpened into steel. That day, they learned humans didn't just fight to survive. We fought to win. Special forces didn't fight like armies. We didn't march in neat lines or announce our presence with banners. We slipped in like shadows and left behind wreckage, confusion, and silence. My squad, Phantom 6, was trained for exactly that. We weren't designed to hold ground. We were built to erase it, to make the enemy doubt every dark corner, every sudden noise, every flicker of static on their comms. We moved behind enemy lines where others wouldn't dare go. Shipyards were our playgrounds, supply depots our hunting grounds. We sabotaged fuel lines, rerouted power grids, and turned their own defenses against them. Entire convoys would vanish overnight, never knowing we were the reason. Sometimes we didn't even fire a shot. We let paranoia do the work. Fear is a weapon sharper than any blade, and we wielded it well. The Krashik called us ghosts. They said we had no heat signatures, no scent, no presence. That wasn't true. We were human, loud, sweating, hungry, exhausted, but we knew how to bury all of that beneath discipline and patience. I once spent 11 days in a saw pipe, soaked to the bone, waiting for one target. When he finally walked past, I didn't hesitate. One strike, and he was gone. Aliens never understood how humans could endure isolation, starvation, or darkness without breaking. They didn't see that our minds had been honed by centuries of hardship, by histories written in blood. To them, we weren't soldiers. We were the nightmares they had hoped would never come alive. The longer the war dragged on, the more I began to notice it, the way even our allies looked at us. At first, they were grateful, relieved to have humanity on their side. But gratitude slowly gave way to unease. The same courage that had terrified the Krashik began to unsettle those who fought beside us. They saw us push past wounds that should have dropped us, saw us march on without food, without rest, without mercy. To them, it didn't look like bravery. It looked like madness. One night, after a brutal mission, I was sitting near the field medics as they patched up the wounded. A young alien healer, her hands trembling as she worked, finally looked at me and whispered, "Do you even feel fear? Do you even bleed?" Her voice wasn't accusatory. It was pleading, as though she needed me to say something human to reassure her. I wanted to tell her the truth, that I was terrified every single day, that the fear never left me. But fear wasn't a prison for us. It was fuel. We didn't run from it. We harnessed it. The galaxy mistook our desperation for cruelty, our endurance for savagery. They didn't see the funerals, the way we carried our dead back home, the weight of their names etched into our memories. They didn't hear the silence in our barracks after a mission, the way laughter died and was replaced with ghosts. They only saw what we showed in battle, and to them, that was enough to label us monsters. The betrayal came quietly, disguised as diplomacy. At first, we thought the Council was finally preparing a united front to end the Krashik threat. That illusion shattered the moment we intercepted their encrypted transmissions. The truth was colder than any battlefield. The Council had struck a deal. They weren't aiming to defeat the Krashik, they were joining them. Humanity wasn't an ally to them anymore. We were a problem, one they intended to solve with fire. Earth itself had been marked as a target. A joint strike fleet, drawn from every major empire, was being assembled not to save the galaxy, but to erase us from it. When that message reached Phantom 6, none of us waited for orders. Orders were chains, and chains couldn't save our home. We stole a gunship from a dockyard crawling with patrols, fought our way past blockade lines, and set a course for the Council's war hub. Every alien fleet between us and that station tried to stop us, and every one of them failed. We were tired, wounded, running low on everything that mattered, but none of that slowed us down. When we breached the Council's heart, alarms screamed and soldiers swarmed, but we weren't there to hide. We stormed their broadcast chamber, cut into every frequency across known space, and I tore off my helmet. The galaxy saw my scarred face, heard my voice steady with fury. I didn't threaten them. I promised them, if Earth was struck, every human would rise, and the galaxy would drown in our fire. The Council never launched their strike. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was the sudden realization of what they had awoken, but their fleets pulled back before the order could be given. The Krashik, broken and scattered from months of relentless strikes, sued for peace within weeks. The war ended not because of diplomacy, not because of treaties, but because the galaxy finally understood the cost of pushing humanity too far. But victory left its scars. We came home to silence, to allies who no longer looked us in the eye. To them, we weren't heroes. We were something darker, something that couldn't be contained or controlled. They spoke about us like we were a weapon that had gone off in their hands, useful in the moment, but too dangerous to ever hold again. For me, the ghosts remained. Every night I saw the faces of those I'd killed, the soldiers who had begged for mercy, the comrades I couldn't save. The galaxy called us nightmares, but they didn't see that we carried our nightmares with us. We bore them quietly, because if we faltered, everything we fought for would unravel. In the end, the galaxy didn't fear our weapons or our strength. They feared the truth, that humans fight not for conquest, not for glory, but for each other. And if ordinary humans had already terrified them, then what we showed on those battlefields ensured they would never forget. The day Special Forces arrived was the day the galaxy learned fear could take human form.